Welcome to Conversations with Comedians with your host, Chris Rossetti. Our special guest today is comedian Bob Smiley.
What an honor to have Bob Smiley with us.
Oh, I am so sorry that I'm late. This is the worst.
Hey, listen,
really
let me tell you something. You're not getting paid nothing for this, so I don't care.
Yeah. I was going to be on time, but I was busy at excuse.com. So just downloading a few excuses. So I won't even like bore you with why I'm late.
I love this. I love this comment right here. Say a joke. Don't you love that when you say I'm a comedian? What's the next?
Yeah. That's why I always tell people whenever I fly and people are like, what do you do for a living? Or I even did it today when I was calling this sales guy. And he was like, what do you do for a living? And so I know this is terrible, but I tell him I'm a janitor because nobody asks me to sweep something if I say I'm a janitor. But if I say I'm a comedian, the next thing is, oh, well, tell me a joke. It's like, yeah, dance for me, circus monkey. So yeah, it's yeah, that's the thing. If you if you try to do comedy and you really try to, to put something good out into the world, there is always going to be haters. Like I remember when I first started putting stuff on YouTube, like I was so shocked at how people would just say negative stuff. And I'm like, well, if you don't like it, just click on with your life. You don't have to like say mean stuff to me. Just don't, you don't have to like it.
Exactly. Somebody said to say hi to you. Okay, somebody named Monkey Commando said to say hi to you.
Oh, I know Monkey Commando. Yeah, he used to go to Spirit West Coast, and he gets Bibles for the troops, like camo Bibles and stuff. He's an awesome dude. We actually did a whole tour all around for the troops at some bases in the States. Yeah, I started doing Spirit West Coast, which is a festival out in Monterey. And he used to bring these monkeys, like not real monkeys, but little stuffed monkeys that would shoot, that had rubber bands on the arm, and they would shoot out. Yeah. There you go. There you go.
He actually did that?
Yeah, he would come out on the stage and he would shoot monkeys out from the stage. And then he would, tell people to go and sign up for the Bibles because he had the Bibles. They just were looking for donations, and then you could actually write in the Bibles a message to the troops.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Visit Bob on all of his social media sites. So let me give you that lowdown real quick, and then we'll ask Bob a couple questions, and then we'll get you on the air, and you can ask Bob questions too. But remember, folks, this is not Hecklers Anonymous. So let's be kind. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so here you go. You ready? You can visit Bob at Bob Smiley's website, bobsmiley.com. You can find him on YouTube at Bob Smiley 12. You can find him on Facebook at Bob Smiley. On Periscope, Instagram, and Twitter at Bob Smiley Comic. We know you're a comic, and we're going to talk comedy, but tell us a little bit about your life off stage. Are you on parole? Are you on parole? What's going on?
Not with this new name. So yeah. No, what do you want to know? I grew up in a town with 281 people in it. I had 17 in my graduating class. So, it was a very interesting way to grow up. The joke I tell on stage is, our town was so small. Our idea of a large industrial company was basically a 200-pound Avon lady. So that's a joke. I quit telling it because I was in a festival at Atlanta Fest, and I said that, and I was back whenever I was paying my dues. It was like 9 a.m. And there was nobody really out there. An outdoor festival, and
right.
The band was sound checking the guitars and stuff through my amps and stuff. So I mean, it's just a horrible setup for comedy. And I went out and I said that joke, and I heard somebody yell, "That's not funny." And I looked, and there was a lady who had like a 30-year celebration Avon shirt on. And I was like, oh my gosh. I started sweating, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And so I hadn't told that joke since, until now.
Well, I'm glad you did, because it needs to be written down.
Mm-hmm.
I understand you're an author. And I don't read too much, but tell me, what have you written?
I've started writing for Focus on the Family's middle school magazine called Clubhouse Magazine. And I started that about 18 years ago, or maybe longer than that, but when my first CD came out, we had a little PR, press release and stuff. And so they sent it out to a bunch of people, and Focus on the Family said, "Oh, that's cool. There's not that many Christian comedians. Would he be interested in writing a humor article about junior high kids going back to school?"
Right.
And so I decided to write this humor article about me. It's actually a true story about me getting one of the worst haircuts of my life, like 2 days before school started. And so I wrote it, but then I thought of a cell phone joke, and I thought, oh, well, I can't make it about me because we didn't have cell phones back then. So I made it a modern day version of me. And I just called the guy Average Boy. And so we just put out this one article, and we just called it The Adventures of Average Boy. And all of a sudden, all these kids were writing in to Focus on the Family saying, "Hey, can you let Average Boy write, more stories and stuff?" Like, they didn't even get it was me. And
Wow.
so that started like 20 years ago. So I've now written every single month for Clubhouse Magazine. And then I've written 2 comedy/devotional books for middle school kids as Average Boy.
That's fantastic. Please call in, and we're going to start taking calls now in between our questions with Bob Smiley. Bob, while we're waiting for some people to call in, when did you realize that comedy was going to be your life?
Okay, I'm going to tell all the listeners right now, I'm going to tell you the first joke I remember telling, and I'm going to tell you up front, it's a dumb joke. But I was in 2nd grade, and we were doing math, and the teacher had this kid, Lloyd, up at the front of the chalkboard, and the problem was 3 birthday candles plus 5 birthday candles equal how many birthday candles, and he couldn't figure it out. And so the teacher said, "Can anybody help?" And I was sitting in the back of the class where the teachers normally sat me throughout my whole career. And
Right.
So I raised my hand, and she looked at me. She was like, "Okay, Bob." And I walked up, and as I was walking up to the blackboard, I'd already thought of the jokes. I already had my set list. And I went up there, and it like I still remember doing this. And I actually was kind of standing like I stand on stage when I'm doing stand up, but I said, "Okay, you got 3 birthday candles, and if you add 5 more, that's 8 birthday candles." And this is where I did a dumb joke. I go, "Come on, Lloyd, it's a piece of cake." Nobody laughed. None of the kids laughed. But my teacher looked down at me, Miss Brown, and she goes, that's all she gave me. But this is why I tell you that story. This is why I remember this so clearly. As I was leaving that day, she stopped me and called me over to her desk. And she goes, "Hey, I just wanted you to know that I was having a really bad morning. And I've thought of that birthday candle joke several times. And it's really brought a smile to my face. So thank you for telling that." So even in 2nd grade, I walked out of that room thinking, wow, comedy's powerful. Comedy can change people's day, change people's outlook. And so I walked out like thinking, okay, no matter what I end up doing, I'm going to use comedy to, try to encourage people.
That's amazing. So that started way back in 2nd grade.
Yeah, in 2nd grade. And then I never was the class clown. Like, I didn't like to disrupt the class, but I was definitely the class comedian where I'd sit there and have the funny things. And I think because the teachers realized I wasn't trying to disrupt the class,
Right.
they would actually let me say funny stuff. Like if I just smiled or if I laughed a little bit, a lot of times teachers, especially in high school, would stop and go, "Okay, what are you thinking? Like, I know you just thought of something funny." And so they would end up letting me say what I would have gotten in trouble for just saying it out loud without waiting for them to ask me.
Wow.
So yeah, it was, I had a lot of teachers encourage me to use comedy in everything I was doing.
Well, that's pretty good because normally teachers are encouraging us to be quiet. So
Yeah. And I think growing up in a small setting and stuff, the teachers really knew all of us individually and kind of knew how to teach each individual kid.
all right, Papa Bear Alaska is wanting to join the conversation. Bob, this is a great, wonderful missionary up in Alaska, and I think you need to hear from him. So can we have him join?
Yeah, let's bring him on. I want to hear from anybody that can minister in Alaska because I've been there and it is freezing.
All right, here's Papa Bear Alaska. He's going to be joining us in about 4 seconds. So I'll let him introduce himself to you, and then you two can talk to each other, and I'll sit back and look handsome. Take it away, gentlemen.
I doubt the last part, but we can at least talk to each other.
Sounds good. Hey, Bob, tell us your most embarrassing situation.
Oh, that's a great question. I was doing a big youth conference. I think it was like 1,800 kids. And I walked out on stage. And of course, whenever you perform in front of youth kids, you got to, come out gunslinging and just throwing jokes everywhere as fast as you can. And to try to get them, you've got about 3 minutes to get their attention, and they'll decide if they're going to listen to you the rest of your show. And so I went out and I was doing really well, except the first 3 rows, I couldn't, like, they would not laugh. They wouldn't look at me, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I did my show. I did like an hour, and I walked off. I was like, man, I don't know why the front row. And I sat down in the green room and I looked, and I had, right before I'd gone on stage, I guess I was stretching because I move around a lot, and I had ripped my pants in the crotchal region, I guess is a clean way to say it. And so I was standing on stage with spotlight right on me, and my pants were ripped, and I didn't realize it. I didn't see it. And so the first 3 rows could see it, but everybody in the back couldn't. And so they were all, and they came up to my merch table afterwards and was like, did you do that on purpose? Like, was that part of your joke? I was like, no, why would I? But yeah, that was probably one of my most embarrassing moments.
Oh, man. And hopefully nobody was taking pictures.
Yeah. I don't want those surfacing if they do.
Yeah.
Actually, I just thought of one more. Let me tell this one. I was on tour with the Newsboys, and we were playing in Amarillo, Texas, and we were playing this big arena. So it was like 6,000 people, and they had a thing where if you brought tortillas, they were doing a big food raising deal, and if you turned the tortillas in at the like during the show or after the show, you would get like a free Newsboy poster or something like that. And so everybody were bringing these tortillas, and I had lost my voice about 2 days before. And, this was like my second tour. So I was just starting out, and the road manager, I actually had to write it on a notepad. Like, I can't perform. I've lost my voice completely. And he goes, well, if you don't perform, you don't get paid. So you got to at least go out there and try. And so he sent me out there, and I went out there, and of course I had no voice. And so I'm standing like holding a mic, and nothing's coming out, and they're all ready for the Newsboys. And so I was just standing there, not able to say anything, but I had to perform. And I looked up at the spotlight, and I saw the first tortilla come flying out of the air and gently hit me on the shoulder. And I turned and looked at the stage manager on the side, and he was like, oh no. And then all of a sudden it was like jumping to light space in the Millennium Falcon. Like, all these tortillas were just flying at me. And the stage manager was like, get off the stage. And I was like, I mouthed, will you pay me? And he was like, yeah, I'm so sorry I made you do that. And so I walked off. So that was probably, those are my top 2.
But did you eat one of the tortillas? That's what really.
Oh, absolutely. I was a starving artist. I took everything I could get.
Oh, man. So have you ever been so sick you thought you were going to die?
Okay, so I was this was in November, and I'd gotten the flu and bronchitis, and I had all these shows in a row, and I was losing my voice, and I landed there, and again, it was a big youth conference, and Ryan Dobson, James Dobson's son, had been there the day before, so it was like a 3-day conference kind of deal, and he thought it would be funny because we're friends, and he thought it'd be funny, or we used to be friends. You'll see why after the end of the story. But he thought it'd be funny to tell the whole crowd that I love to do magic more than comedy. And so they said, whenever he comes on, you got to start chanting magic show, magic show. And so I'm literally backstage drinking hot tea and honey and trying to get my voice to be strong enough to go out and do my show. And so I walk out, and I'm trying to get my voice, and they start chanting magic show, and they won't stop. So nobody can hear me because like I could barely whisper. And that went on for way too long. So yeah, that was probably the sickest I was ever. The second one was I went to Colorado Springs and did a bunch of stuff with Compassion International and Focus on the Family. And then flew to Minot, North Dakota the next day to do a festival. and I got altitude sickness. And I was emceeing the show, so I was doing like 5-minute comedy bits in between each band. And so I literally would go up and I would do my 5 minutes, introduce the band, and then I'd go backstage and throw up. And I did that for about 6 hours.
Oh,
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. That's not
All right,
fun.
thank
you guys. Great meeting you, Bob.
Let me ask you a question. Another comedian friend of ours that you know is Joey Aiello.
Oh, yeah. I talked to him like 3 days ago.
And wasn't he in Canada too?
Yeah, he and Darren Streblo did a whole tour up in Canada.
Why did you guys go to Canada in the winter? What's wrong?
Because they have a check with my name on it. So I'll go anywhere. It was so funny because, Canadians are known for being super nice, but I totally got into it like a verbal fight with this guy. I was walking into Tim Hortons, and we got in a huge fight. So, yeah, it was a really knockdown. He was like, after you, and I was like, no, I insist. And, I was wearing a shirt that had Texas on it, and so he was like looking for my gun. And, yeah, and I was moving around like crazy in case he wanted to give me a free healthcare exam. We were stereotyping. But here's what I like. Canadians, they know comedy. And so if you don't bring a good show, they won't be rude, but they just won't laugh. Like you don't get courtesy laughs or anything. And it's really a dose of truth of whether your show's good or not. So I love going up to Canada.
Speaking of Canadians, here's my good friend. He's joining us on the air now. His name is Mike from Canada, from Calgary. And he's a nice guy. And so please, Mike, take it away. What would you like to ask Bob?
Hey, Bob, just wanted to know where you were in Canada when you did your comedy show.
I was in Chilliwack, BC.
Okay, a few hours west of me.
Yeah, so that was the last one. And then I was in Toronto in December. I think it was December. So I've been to Canada a couple of times in the past couple of months and stuff. I did the Toronto thing. It's called the Laugh for Life Gala. And they do a big fundraiser every year. It was me and a comedian named Anita Renfro. And I always have trouble getting across the border because they never know. Like I come across and I go, I'm a comedian. In fact, the first time I went across the border, I said I'm a comedian, and the guy asked me to actually tell some jokes to prove I was a comedian. And here's the best part. Again, Canadians have great sense of humor. I told him a couple of jokes, and he goes, so do you got anything else? And I was like, what? And he was like, no, I'm just messing with you now. But I believe you. That stuff was funny, but he was totally messing with me. But when I went to do the Laugh for Life Gala, it was so funny because they go, what are you here for? And I go, I'm a comedian. I'm doing it's called Laugh for Life. And they were like, oh, thank you so much. We love that. We love that program. And they just let me through. It was so great.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Michael, for calling. And do us a big favor. Next time he comes to Canada, make sure you take care of him, okay?
Oh, one other quick question for Bob. Have you ever heard of Steve Geyer, the Christian comedian?
Yeah, he actually was the first because how I got into comedy was a fluke deal. Like it wasn't anything I was pursuing. And so all of a sudden I got thrust into this world of doing comedy, but I didn't really know how to do it, or, I wasn't even thinking it was going to be a career. I just kept getting these offers to do these tours. So the first Christian comedian I ever saw was Steve Geyer, and he was at Spirit West Coast in Monterey. And so I went and watched him just to see how he did it, and got to talk to him afterwards. And yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, he ministered to me when I was 18 years old at a young adult gathering, really profoundly.
Oh, wow.
And the word has stuck with me for 22 years now, or 23 years, that he gave me that night.
Wow. See, that's the thing. Comedy really can open up a lot of doors. Like it makes people, if you can make them laugh, they'll lower their walls, and then they'll actually listen to, things that you can say, and you really have an opportunity to breathe life into people.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I did my first prison show several months ago, and I do this bit about my voice being really high for a human. And so the bit is, I say, pretend you're a burglar breaking in downstairs, and I was at the top of the stairs. Would this scare you? And I go, you better not be down there, which is, it gets a big laugh. with the prisoners. I didn't even think it through. And I go, pretend you're a burglar breaking in downstairs. And one guy yelled, "Don't have to pretend." And I was like, oh, it's so good.
Okay, Bob, I understand, looking at your schedule, you're headed to Utah to be with the Dry Bar Comedy Group. Those guys are phenomenal. Can you tell us about how you got in touch with them and what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, another comedian friend of mine, Dennis Gaxioli, he called me out of the blue and he was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing dry bar comedy?" And I, of course, knew about their clips and stuff, but I didn't know much about them. And I was like, "Yeah, I'd like to." And he said, "Well, they're looking for another comedian to film in a couple of months, and I suggested you." And I was like, "Oh, absolutely." I contacted the people, and yeah, we booked it. I'm going to do 30-minute sets. So I'm going to do an hour, but they're going to break it up into 2 segments, and then they break it up for clips and stuff for VidAngel and all that. So yeah, I'm hoping it'll get me in front of a whole bunch of new audience members.
Yeah, Dennis Gaxiola, he's right across the bay. I've done some stuff with him here locally, and promoted some of his shows. And he let me on stage for about 5 minutes once, and then I think he's blocked my calls since. But anyway, Dennis is an amazing guy, and he went on Dry Bar, and some of his clips have gotten, 20 million, 19 million, 30 million views.
Yeah, that's what he told me. He said this one clip, one that they picked to promote, and it got, I think it was at 39 million views.
Social media presence is phenomenal. It's a great place to go. And what they promote, everybody, if you haven't heard of Dry Bar Comedy, is they promote wholesome, clean comedy. So you can watch it and never worry about anything. It's great. How else can everyone else get in touch with you for booking? How else can they reach you?
Well, anybody that wants to book me can contact me. My email is really difficult. It's bob@bobsmiley.com.
What's the best green room food you've ever had?
Oh man, Chick-fil-A. I got to go Chick-fil-A. The Chick-fil-A nuggets, and it's you just can't beat it there. But that's the great thing about traveling around is a lot of times people will put, like, a lot of people know that I love beef jerky, so a lot of times there'll be some factory in their town that makes beef jerky, and it's like specialized. Right. So they have that. But yeah, pretty much it's hard to beat Chick-fil-A nuggets.
And what is the absolute worst food you've had in the green room?
I've toured with some people that I won't name that like have gone vegan, and so you come in and it's like sprouts and grains. And do you remember whenever you used to run through the field when you were a kid, and then you would get home and empty out your cuffs at the bottom of your pants, and that stuff would fall out? That's what we would have. We would have like Nutribrain goat feed crunch or something like that. Like, it's just not, yeah.
Oh man, I agree. What do you have coming up in the future?
You know what? I'm actually playing Rhode Island, which is the only state that I hadn't been in before. So I am in. I'm doing a tour May 25th through the 28th. So I'm in Cape Cod, New Hampshire, Uxbridge, Massachusetts. I'm going to have to learn how to say all these cities and states before I get up there. North Adams, Maine, I think it is. And then there's one, somewhere in New York. Poughkeepsie, New York.
Poughkeepsie.
And that's Poughkeepsie. It's April 28th. Yeah. It's my favorite city if anybody from there asks.
Want to find Bob Smiley on the internet, you can find him at his website, bobsmiley.com, YouTube, Bob Smiley 12, Facebook, Bob Smiley, and then on Periscope, Instagram, and Twitter, you can find him at Bob Smiley Comic. Well, listen, I'm going to let you go. I want to thank you for joining me today. This has been a real honor, Bob. You're a good friend, and you're an amazing talent, and I'm so happy you were able to join us. Do me a favor. Before you go, promise me you'll come back.
Okay, I will. If nothing else, then take that monkey away from you.
Okay. All right, man. Hope you had as much fun as I have. And thank you, everybody, for participating. Thanks for calling in. And have a great day, everybody.
This has been Conversations with Comedians with your host, Chris Rossetti, reminding you you are free to laugh now. See you next time.